Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ben here. I am back again today doing another video. The subject of today's video is going to be all about LeBron James and basically the possibility of him being traded by the Lakers. It may be unclear whether you guys have heard or have not heard about this story. I'm guessing most of you have heard at least something about it. But basically, last week, bleeding into over this weekend, Jeannie Buss had been getting advice from higher ups, particularly Kurt Rambis and a few other former Lakers and Laker advisors, that the Lakers should consider trading LeBron James and just basically giving up on this whole LeBron experiment. So, with that out of the way, today I have come up with 5 potential trades for LeBron. Now, these are not perfect by any means. I was just trying to spitball, and actually, this is a very difficult potential trades to come up with because when you consider, yes, LeBron is, I think, still a top 5 player in the league, arguably the best player still, kind of neck and neck with anybody else for best player title, but at least a top 5 player title, depending on how you think about him. But he probably will only be at that level for, I think, in most people's minds, maybe 2 to optimistically 3 more years, but probably more around like 2 years as like a MVP caliber type player. And so it's hard to come up with trades wherein there would be equal value because you're probably getting like an MVP type player for 2 more years, but then after that, who really knows what you're getting? So it's hard to come up with what even value would be because let's say you trade a really promising young player like I'm trying to even think right now like a Zion for LeBron trade. That would be really hard because Zion is completely unproven and you don't really know how much longer you'll have LeBron. And so that was a trade that I thought about trying to come up with one, but I avoided. But today I have 5 that I'm going to go through. And again, they're not perfect, and I don't know even if necessarily either of these teams would consider the trade options, but just hear me out and let's go through them. So the first trade I have here is the Lakers trading with the Nets. The Nets have a ton of cap space coming up this offseason. They've got um, Damari Carroll coming off the books, Jared Dudley coming off the books, D'Angelo Russell, Ed Davis, Rondae Hollis Jefferson. I think they've got around 50 to 60 million in cap space, so they definitely have enough to take on LeBron. In this trade, I have the Nets acquiring LeBron, and then the Lakers acquiring Karis LeVert, Jared Allen, 2 future first-round picks, and then basically just cash in LeBron's place. Because the Lakers or the Nets have enough cap space that it would basically be just a salary dump on the Lakers' part, and they would get to clear the decks. They'd get 35 million back, or actually around 32 million, because they'd be taking back Jared Allen and Karis LeVert. So they'd have 32 million, 2 future first-round picks, and really nice young players in Jared Allen. They won't have a center coming up this offseason. They got rid of, or Tyson Chandler and JaVale McGee will be free agents. So as of right now, their starting center would be uh, Mo Wagner, and he's not really good enough to be a starting center in the NBA, but I think Jared Allen proved this last year that he would be. So he immediately plugs a hole for them in that position. And then they do have some okay options like Reggie Bullock and Josh Hart at shooting guard, but I think that Karis LeVert would be an upgrade over those guys. So you get an upgrade at shooting guard, and then the 2 future first-round picks, which could be useful. Although the Nets might be hesitant to give away future first-round picks, but if they have uh, the core that they do with D'Angelo Russell, I'd be confident. And then also the Lakers would get that 32 million to spend on whatever free agents they want or try to lure somebody. I don't know how well that would go considering everything that's gone on and the chaos that they have surrounding them right now, but it could still be nice to bring in somebody. So as for the Lakers, after this trade, your starting lineup would probably be looking like Lonzo, Karis LeVert, Brandon Ingram, Kyle Kuzma, and Jarrett Allen, with a bench of Josh Hart and really Josh Hart and KCP. Well, actually, KCP will be a free agent, so Josh Hart's basically your sixth man. As for the Nets, your starting lineup's probably going to look something like D'Angelo Russell, Ed Davis at center, LeBron at small, probably like power forward, Joe Harris probably at small forward, and then maybe Spencer Dinwiddie at shooting guard, or if they continue to play this Curix guy, who's like a small forward, they could do a starting lineup of Russell, Joe Harris, Curix, LeBron, and Ed Davis. But either way, and then you'd have as your bench Spencer Dinwiddie coming off the bench along with like Alan Crabb, but and then Rondé Hollis Jefferson as well. So maybe they could switch it around a bit, but basically you're going to have a core of LeBron, D'Angelo Russell, Spencer Dinwiddie, Rondé Hollis Jefferson, and Joe Harris as like your main 5 dudes, and then like ancillary pieces like Joe Harris and like that. Okay, next we are looking at a trade between the 2 most storied franchises in the history of basketball. That would be the Lakers and the Celtics. I have the Celtics acquiring LeBron James, and I have the Lakers acquiring Gordon Hayward, Jaylen Brown, and this year's Kings pick from the Celtics. So what's interesting here is that Kings pick's probably going to fall somewhere around like anywhere between 11 to 14. And so it won't be that great, but it's better than nothing. And then also the Lakers get a decent rotational player in Gordon Hayward and a nice, really promising young player in Jaylen Brown, who is about equal to any player that you could say the Lakers have right now outside of LeBron. And so this one is another one where I don't know that the Lakers would necessarily go for it, but you are getting, it's the thing is like, the team that's getting LeBron will probably only be getting him for about 2 to 3 years. And so it's not like teams are going to trade everything for LeBron. That's the really hard part about this. If we're talking about 27-year-old LeBron who's on a 4-year deal, then yes, the Celtics would have to give up Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Gordon Hayward, and 3 first-round picks. But because it's LeBron, who this year will be turning 35, I believe. Yeah, 35, because he's born in 1984. So in December he will turn 35. It's way harder to figure out. So, but the Lakers in this trade are getting a 6th man in Gordon Hayward. They're getting a guy who can start in the lineup right away in Jaylen Brown. So after this trade, the Lakers starting lineup would look like Lonzo, Jaylen Brown, Brandon Ingram, Kyle Kuzma, Mo Wagner at center, and then your bench would be Josh Hart and Gordon Hayward. So some good pop off the bench, and again the main weakness of this team is going to be center, but still they got good wing depth, and that's pretty valuable in today's NBA when when wings are the 2 to the 4 position on the court. And then as for the Celtics, you get LeBron. I think if they acquired LeBron, you could entice Kyrie to stay, and then you'd have a starting lineup that would look something like Kyrie at point guard, then you'd probably have Marcus Smart at shooting guard, then LeBron, then Tatum, and then if they don't re-sign Horford, Baines, but if they do re-sign Horford, then Horford, and then your bench would be something like probably Terry Rozier would be gone if they re-signed Kyrie, so you'd have on your bench something like Semi Ojeleye and maybe Marcus Morris if they can get him to re-sign. But either way, you basically have a core of LeBron, Kyrie, Jason Tatum, which would be pretty good. But maybe if they trade for LeBron and don't re-sign Kyrie, then the starting lineup would look something like Terry Rozier and Marcus Smart and LeBron and Tatum and Al Horford or Aaron Baines. The worst case scenario for this team would be if they don't re-sign Marcus Morris, don't re-sign Al Horford, don't re-sign Kyrie, but then they pull this LeBron trade, then the starting lineup would likely look like Rozier, Marcus Smart, LeBron, Jason Tatum, and Aaron Baines with Semi Ojeleye as one of their, and Robert Williams as like their best bench players. So in that scenario, they probably get worse off actually, but that would be because they have so many free agents besides acquiring LeBron. Next, I have a trade between the Lakers and the 76ers. So the 76ers in this scenario would have to give up re-signing Tobias Harris basically, but the trade would be because they would need the cap space to acquire LeBron. It would be Lonzo and LeBron to the 76ers in exchange for Ben Simmons. So now this harkens back to the whole like LeBron's only got 2 to 3 years left, and Ben Simmons is like 21 years old and would be super valuable to have in the long term. So if you acquire Ben Simmons, he's already I think he's extended for the max after this. So if not, he will be pretty shortly here, and so you'd have Ben Simmons locked up for around 6 more years after this, which would be super valuable. He's already been an All-Star. He's a very good player. Yeah, and basically the only reason that you give up Lonzo is because I don't think that the 76ers would be willing to trade 2 years of LeBron for basically probably more than a decade of Ben Simmons. And so I think Lonzo is like a player right there in the middle where you could kind of you could succeed giving him up without it being too terrible for you, as Ben Simmons is a better player than Lonzo. So the Lakers starting lineup after this would probably look like Ben Simmons, Josh Hart, Brandon Ingram, Kyle Kuzma, Mo Wagner, and then the 76ers starting lineup and bench type look would be probably I'm gonna assume that they re-sign Butler and Redick here, but they let Tobias Harris go just because of the salary to get LeBron to them. So it would look something like Lonzo, Butler. Well, actually, let's see here. It would look like Lonzo, Redick, Butler, LeBron, and Embiid, with a bench looking like Marjanovic and Jonathan Simmons, and probably Mike Scott too if they re-sign those guys. So 76ers would look very imposing. They'd essentially be trading Simmons and Tobias Harris for LeBron and Lonzo Ball. I don't think this would be a good trade for the 76ers, but I think that they would just be so desperate to contend that they would pull it and not really think about it. And um, they're just in such a weird spot as a team because they have these really young guys, but they're also thinking like win now, which is a really weird place to be in. Next, these last two trades I have here are probably the two that I think are the most fair or like make the most sense. And so the first one is between Denver and Los Angeles. I have the Nuggets getting just LeBron, and then I have Los Angeles acquiring Jamal Murray, who would be kind of like the star of this trade, along with Will Barton, Malik Beasley, and Mason Plumlee. So Mason Plumlee fills the void at center that will be there since they don't have anybody besides Mo Wagner. So he'd plug in the starting lineup right away. You'd get Jamal Murray, he's a great combo guard. He can play either point or shooting guard. Then you got Will Barton, who can play either wing position, shooting guard, or small forward. And then you get Malik Beasley, who can basically play the same, either shooting guard or small forward. And he's a really good energy sixth man type guy. So your starting lineup for the Lakers after this would look something like, I think, Lonzo, Jamal Murray, Brandon Ingram, Kyle Kuzma, and then Mason Plumlee, with a bench consisting of, let's see here, Josh Hart, Malik Beasley, and Will Barton, which is really deep. And also, I mean, you could kind of do an interchangeability between Lonzo, Jamal Murray, Josh Hart, Malik Beasley, and Will Barton. You could kind of switch around any of those five for those two starting spots, but either way, they'd have a lot of depth coming off the bench on the wings. And then if you're Denver, your starting lineup's probably going to look like after this trade: Monte Morris, Gary Harris, LeBron, Paul Millsap, and Nikola Jokic, which is a phenomenal starting lineup. And then your bench is going to have like Juan Hernan Gomez. Let's see here, who else is? You got Isaiah Thomas will be there, Torrey Craig. Obviously, the Nuggets do lose a lot of depth here, but they gain LeBron James, so. And they're not losing any like superstar in this process. They're losing Jamal Murray, who is a nice young player, but I think his ceiling is going to be CJ McCollum in my opinion. And so I think it's worth it trading LeBron for this group of guys who, it's sort of like trading $1 for 4 quarters, but the Nuggets are getting the dollar and the Lakers will be getting the 4 quarters. So I think it'd be worth it for Denver to pull the trigger. And then lastly, I have kind of like the least realistic, yet at the same time very realistic trade that I think a team would be desperate enough to make, and that is LeBron going to the Rockets from the Lakers. So I have the Rockets getting just LeBron, and then I have the Lakers getting Eric Gordon, Clint Capella, and 3 future first-round picks. So now I don't know that the Lakers would necessarily do this trade, but both Eric Gordon and Clint Capella fill needs that they have. They don't really have a great shooting guard right now. Like Josh Hart is decent, but not. He's borderline starter. He's maybe a seventh man in my opinion on a really good team. So, but he's their starter right now. Whereas I think you could kind of platoon him and Eric Gordon a bit, and neither of them is really like starter caliber, but they're each like 6-man caliber. So you could play them together or stagger their minutes, but that would be a bolstering of the shooting guard spot. And then they really need a center because they won't have McGee or Tyson Chandler, as I've been saying throughout the whole video. So you could plug Clint Capella into your starting center slot. So the Lakers starting lineup after this would probably look like Lonzo, Josh Hart, Ingram, Kuzma, and Clint Capella with Eric Gordon as your main guy off the bench. And then you got the 3 future first round picks, which will probably come in handy for them soon. And then for Houston, your starting lineup is probably going to look like Chris Paul, James Harden, LeBron, and then you're probably going to have PJ Tucker and Kenneth Faried as just like a small ball center sort of, because I doubt that they're going to start Nene because he's just a bit old. But still, you're going to have a really top heavy team. But again, you're going to have 2 of arguably the top 5 players in the game, and in James Harden and LeBron in that lineup. And yes, they're giving up a lot of future assets, but they are acquiring a guy who's MVP caliber right now. So that's my whole video, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it interesting. If you disagree with me or if you agree with me, let me know in the comments. I welcome people disagreeing with me. It's fine. I'd love to hear your side of things and why you don't think that the trades I came up with were good, and your own trade ideas that you think would also be good ideas for where LeBron could go. Again, as I say, this was a very tricky one because LeBron just has such little time left in his career relative to so many big trades that go down. For usually players that are getting traded that are at LeBron's skill level are right in their primes at like 26 to 27 years old, like Kawhi when he got traded, or Kyrie 2 years ago. They're not going on 35 like LeBron is, so that made making these trades a lot more difficult and tricky than would normally be. So again, hope you guys have a good day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.